marketing is not science. It's a craft. It's really something that you need to learn by doing. Go out, get a job, getting your hands dirty. I think that's probably the best tip I could give.
If you're making great digital work, prove it. The call for entries for the Lovey Awards is open. Enter by the 5th of August at lovyawards.com. Presented by the Webbies, the Lovey Awards was founded to honour the best of the internet in Europe. Think ad campaigns, digital marketing, games, social, immersive experiences and podcasts like this one. Entering your work recognises the team and winning proves that they're the best creative talent in Europe. Work is accepted across 7 languages: English, French, German, Spanish, Italian, Dutch and Swedish. Join this symbol of the internet and creative excellence. Enter by the 5th of August at lovyawards.com. Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object podcast. My name is Tom Ollerton. I'm the founder of Automated Creative, and this is a weekly show where I interview the leaders of our industry and ask them about their vision for the future of that industry. So I'm very excited to be on a call with Holvøe, who is Director, Head of Marketing and Digital at Telenor. So Anas, for anyone who doesn't know who you are and what you do, could you give us a bit of background?
I can definitely do that. And thanks a lot for having me on here. And just a small, very side note to my last name here, and you pronounced it very, very nice. It was actually my grandfather. He was a pianist playing the piano, and he had a vision of actually going to US to get a big career over there. But he needed a shiny new name, last name to do that. And then he chose Holvøe, and that is totally impossible to pronounce and spell and so on in US. Just to tell a little bit of a story of how off he actually was going to US trying to get a career with that last name, but and he of course didn't make it. So he went back to Denmark and pursued another career. But a little bit about myself. As you also said, I'm director of marketing and digital here at Telenor, and are working with how we can actually bridge marketing and digital together. So I have a fairly large team working with marketing, CRM, our website, our app, and so on. Also, I have some data people actually sitting and empower us with data and models and so on. So really exciting and great to be here at your show, Tom.
And what career did you have before this? What are the jobs you did to get to this point?
Yeah, it's actually started a little bit, as I also told you about my grandfather. He was playing the piano, and I did the same for many years, and actually thought I should be a musician, pursued that career a little bit, but didn't have the talent as he didn't have either. So
as I always say, it doesn't stop most people though. It's definitely not a prerequisite for success as far as I've seen.
I agree, but I did that for a couple of years. Actually played in a couple of bands, and then thought, okay, I need to do something else. So I started working as a projectionist, showing films in a cinema, and then started at university, and then by luck or incident or whatever, I actually came into marketing and did a degree there, and then for many years worked at an agency, a fairly big one in Denmark, but independent agency. Worked there for almost 9 years. And made the way from junior consultant to partner at that firm. And then at some point I thought, okay, I probably need to do something else. I need to get some other insights. I need to get some other perspective to life. And then I went to another agency, a smaller digital one, really working with marketing automation, how you can use all the new stuff. The other one was a little bit more strategic oriented. So when I was there for a year, and then actually got this opportunity at Telenor, and took that, and have now been here for 2.5 years.
So in terms of the last 5 years, which new belief or behavior has improved the quality of your work life?
I think that's a very good question. I think just getting older and wiser is probably the boring answer. But if I should name something that actually is a little bit more tangible and also maybe usable for other people, it's actually that I would say, I don't know how much a percentage, but plus 50% of all problems will disappear again if you just wait a little bit of time. So don't really jump into a solution right when a problem emerge. Try to give it a little bit of time, breathe in, see if it's also there the day after or a week after, and then really just also give some time to evaluate the problem. And I would say that most of the times it's not a real problem. It's just somebody in the organization or somebody that invented this problem because they needed something to do. So really breathe and see if it actually a real problem. Right. And it's actually and sorry, but it's actually my old CMO. He had this whole vision of hey, don't solve problems. Let's just wait and see. And when I went into the management part team of the agency, he told us this, that hey, we don't need to solve all problems. Let's just wait and see. And of course I really saw, and this opened my eyes in terms of hey, just breathe, just wait.
That is the first time I've ever heard that, certainly on this podcast, if ever. And it's a brilliant idea. So let's dig into that. So first of all, you said that 50% of all problems disappear. Is that science or is that the feel?
No science behind this. It's just a feel. And maybe it's bigger, maybe it's less, I don't know. But it's just, maybe there is, you can find some science backing this up. I don't know. It would really be interesting to dig into it and see if you can actually prove this. But right now it's just gut feel. But I can tell you, I have tried this now for 4 years or something, really trying to not solve all problems by instant. But I think it's a human reaction actually. When you see a problem and if it's connected to you by instant you are really, like you start looking for answers, you start trying to solve it. I think it goes all the way back to when it was way more simpler, when it was about not getting killed by dangerous animals and getting food. So if you saw an animal, you ran all whatever your legs could carry you and as long. So it's just human nature, I would say, to try to solve the different problems. But if you try to really try to wait and breathe and wait a couple of days, I know, and it's also, and I'm oversimplifying things because of course some problems need to be solved just as they come, but many you can wait.
So give me an example of when this has worked for you.
I would say performance issues. The old CMO or CEO that I mentioned before, the only time where he didn't wait it was when our pipeline was too small or too thin. Then he put up a lot of new initiatives, and most of them didn't make any impact. It was so if he actually would just have waited and just seen things, just seen things how they progressed and so on, it would probably have been better. And it's kind of the same. We can just see it here in telco as well. When we really try to push in terms of performance and getting new customers in, we get too aggressive, and then we buy them too expensive, and then they leave us 6 months after, leaving us with a bad CLV and a bad experience. So if we just waited a little bit and gave it some time, maybe it would actually have been better to not try to solve that problem.
So what would you say is your top marketing tip? What is that bit of advice that you've had from the same CMO perhaps, or someone else that you find yourself sharing most often?
Yeah, but my current CEO is actually, and I think he said it a couple of times, and I totally agree with that. Marketing is not science; it's a craft. It's really something that you need to learn by doing. So my best recommendation to everybody is actually not go and have a big degree or anything. Of course, that's good as a to have in your backpack. But if I should select or recommend, I would say go out, get a job in an agency if possible, or working with a brand, and then really get some tangible practical experience, and then because this will give you a better intuition in terms of what works, what doesn't work. You cannot read that in a science book. So really go out and get knowledge from working, getting your hands dirty. I think that's probably the best tip I could give. Don't read too many difficult books
or listen to too many podcasts, right?
No, but seriously, but podcast that is way more practical in my. Many of them are really practical in terms of what is working, what is not working. If you read a science book, it's mostly science, and it's theory and so on, and it's too academic in many of the times. And I actually have a degree and so on, so it's not because I haven't read a lot of marketing books, but and of course some of them are great, but we also have a lot of books that really don't give any benefits. So I would always recommend go out and get your hands dirty.
This episode of the Shiny New Object podcast is brought to you in partnership with Madfest. Whether it's live in London or streamed online to the global marketing community, you can always expect a distinctive and daring blend of fast-paced content, startup innovation pitches, and unconventional entertainment from Madfest events. You'll find me causing trouble on stage, recording live versions of this podcast, and sharing a beer with the nicest and most influential people in marketing. Check it out at www.madfestlondon.com. So we're now going to talk about your shiny new object, which is breaking down organizational silos. So what do you mean by that? And why is it your shiny new object?
Yeah, and maybe it's a different shiny new object compared to many other of your participants in this podcast. But I really believe that if we need to succeed with marketing, branding, especially all the digital stuff that we are talking about now in terms of digital transformation or whatever we call it, we really need to break down silos here. We really need to get people to work together. We really need to get marketing, sales, or commercial guys, tech, a lot of these different silos that we have known for many years in organizations. We would need to bring them together in smaller teams that can work together and really work based on how they can create value for customers. So really trying to put teams together cross-function. Different functions is key to succeed to success. Yeah.
So before we get into the solution, some of the people listening to this podcast will maybe have only ever worked in agencies, for example. So could you help them understand the problem of having organizational silos? What happens on a bad day?
On a bad day, I can give you many examples of this, but if I, for instance, would like to do something that requires tech or maybe legal approval, then we could have a fantastic strategy or something that we would like to do in terms of how we could really accelerate digital. A CDP, for instance, could be a customer data platform. Implementing that could be a good example. I need to go to legal to get that approved. I need to go to tech to secure resources to actually get that implemented. I also probably need to go to an advisory board in terms of getting them to sign off, and then also to the CEO group to probably also get that signed off. If we could, maybe the CEO could not be and should not be part of this, so we cannot get away with that. But if we could put teams together in terms of how could we actually solve this problem, now we allocate people into this, solving this issue, people from tech, legal, whatever, stakeholders needed, put them into a team and say, hey, you need to do this. Then I would bet that instead of writing emails back and forth to each other and calling in for meetings, and then you forget about what was the issue, and then you need to start over 14 days after when you have a follow-up meeting. If we try to really put people together to get a solution done, it would be way more efficient and way more effective.
So what's the best way to get started with breaking down the silos? Is it like going back to zero, or is it slight tweaks of teams? So if someone's listening to this thinking, oh, we need that, like, what's your advice for getting started? Many
companies, if you look at, for instance, Spotify has really tried to embrace this agile way of work and so on. But it's easier when you are a startup. If you are a more mature company with a fixed organization, what we have actually tried to do, and what I've tried to do, is try to just really try to not pull people out of their normal day of life, but say, hey, borrow people for 14 days or something, just to say how now we actually just work on solving this problem, and we try to get as far as we can with this limited period of time, and then really try to put people together and give them a clear objective of what we need to reach and how we need to get there, and then bugger off. As a leader, you need to really also give the team and trust the team that they are the specialist here. They can solve this issue the best way, but borrow people in and show how it's done, and also what value you actually can create with just 14 days or 3 weeks or whatever time you can actually borrow people. I think that's a way to go, to try it out and test it, and then really show some results.
So your trial is for a 2-3 week period, build a kind of super team made of different disciplines and go after a problem. Is that what you're suggesting?
I would say that's definitely my suggestion to get started. We build a core team, actually trying to solve the issue, and then see how far you can go.
What I'm really keen to know is how this has worked for you in the past. So as you say, theoretically makes sense, but you've said that your tip is to get actual experience. Are you able to relay any of your practical experience of working in this agile way so that the audience can get a better understanding about how to apply this theory?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. I think looking back at just when I started at Telenor, we were way more siloed and had a different way of work. Now we actually try to implement this, just to say we try to put a core team together. We call it core team. That is a cross-functional team with people from commercial, with people from my part of the organization, with also people from the channel side, so working with retail and so on. Bring those together. It's not a big team. It's 8 people, 7 people actually in total. About performance. How can we do tactical, day-to-day oriented campaigns to deliver a fantastic baseline of just performance all the time? And and we give them, they have some targets. They also know what to do, and they have some resources they can pull in if needed in terms of creative, but also budget they can use. That's allocated for them, and then they can go do. Then they deliver the performance. Of course, they report out once in a while, but most importantly is actually also. They not only report out in terms of KPIs or what performance by numbers, but actually also in terms of learnings and what they have actually learned. They A/B test a lot of things and so on to get learnings, but it could also be try to automate things, try to always on campaigns, versus one-off campaigns and so on. So they have a clear target, they have a clear objective, and then they are working together to actually deliver the goals and performance that we set out.
So what are the downsides of this approach?
But the downsides is, of course, if you put people together cross-functionally, they are pulled out of their normal daily life. And they don't have the same opportunity of actually sparring with the other marketing specialist or specialist within their field. So most often I hear that, hey, I'm feeling a little bit disconnected from my team. And I miss the sparring with other specialists within my field of work.
And so what's the antidote to that issue?
But it's doing both. It's actually still keeping them and having a reference point in terms of the functional area that they are working with, so they can still spar and they can still join team related stuff within marketing and digital, but they also have a clear objective and working within this cross-functional team or core team or whatever, agile team, whatever you call it, because then they will naturally be more T-shaped. They will naturally learn more about commercial issues and so on. If you are marketing people, you learn more, but you still have the opportunity and the benefit of actually still being connected to your marketing team and to the people that work within your field of work.
And so what would you say is the best thing to read to get genned up on this? What would you say is the kind of the core text here that people could investigate to learn more?
But if you just Google marketing or agile, actually, then it's you can find a lot of issues, or not issues, but a lot of textbooks and so on. We have a podcast, but it's in Danish, so that's probably a little bit narrow. But if you Google Spotify model agile, then you will get a lot of just videos, YouTube and so on, and also a lot of textbook examples, articles and so on about explaining that model. And I think that's a good way to start, because it's actually bridging some of the issues here, and also bridging like a matrix organization and how you get that up and running.
Well, unfortunately, Anas, we are at the end of the podcast. So if someone wanted to carry on this conversation with you, where would you like them to reach out to you, and how would you like them to do that?
I definitely get a lot of LinkedIn messages, but I would still mention that channel as the best way. But please write something that can catch my attention instead of just adding. Please, I would like to add you to my network or something. Try to drop a small line in terms of what you would like to talk about and so on. Then I normally answer and approve. But you need to invest a little bit in yourself to get my attention.
Fantastic, Anas. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome, Tom. Always a pleasure.
Hi, just before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to write a review of the shiny new Object podcast on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, whatever it's called these days, or whichever podcast provider you use. We're an indie podcast, so it would go a long way for us if you could just share the word and give us a bit of a support on those channels. That'd just be fantastic. If you haven't got time, that's also cool. And yeah, if you could tell your colleagues about the podcast, and also, if possible, don't forget to subscribe. And I'd love to hear your feedback. If you'd like to speak on the podcast or be a guest, or you think I'm asking the wrong questions, anything, I'd be super interested to hear what you think. So please email me at tom@automatedcreative.net. That's TOM at, I'm not going to bother spelling it. Anyway, you'll work it out. Thanks so much.